Do you have a good life? Are you happy? How do you know? What does a good life actually look like? For a long time, we've been told that a good life is something you earn, buy, or protect. That if you have the right job, the right income, the right level of security, then happiness will follow. But when researchers began asking people how they actually feel about their lives, a different picture emerged. Wealth and security matter, but only up to a point. What shapes our quality of life most often can't be found on a bank statement. We're in Buenos Aires, Argentina, at a gathering of researchers who are studying quality of life, happiness, and well-being. This region, Latin America, presents something of a puzzle. On paper, many countries here face serious challenges: economic insecurity, political uncertainty, and inequality. Yet when people here are asked how satisfied they are with their lives, many report high levels of well-being. So what's really going on? How is happiness actually measured? Each year, the World Happiness Report draws on survey responses from over 140 countries, collected by the Gallup World Poll. They're asked a simple question. Imagine a ladder. The top step represents the best possible life for you. The bottom step, the worst. You are asked, on which step of the ladder do you feel you stand right now? This question isn't about how happy you felt yesterday. It's about how you evaluate your life as a whole. When millions of people answer that question, patterns begin to emerge. Sometimes in places the world doesn't expect. To better understand this, we sat down with two leading experts on well-being in Latin America. Mariano Rojas, author of The Handbook of Happiness Research in Latin America, and Lina Martínez, author of Felicidad. Mariano, you spent many years studying quality of life and well-being in Latin America. When you step back from this region and look at it as a whole, what can you tell us about how people experience a good life here?
Well, there is something special about Latin America that surprises me, and that's that the region as a whole is relatively happy. And it's happier than it's expected for the social and economic conditions of the region.
Lina, you wrote a book called Felicidad, which translates happiness. And you asked me questions like why we want it and is it possible to even achieve? From your perspective, what makes happiness in Latin America different than other parts of the world?
I will say that one of the things that makes it different, it is the strength and the density of the relationships. The way we relate with others, the way we have created the bonds with family, with friends.
Costa Rica and Mexico, which have recently been listed among the happiest countries in the world by the World Happiness Report. Were either of you surprised by those results?
I would be surprised 30 years ago. Because 30 years ago, there was this idea that happiness was about having money, about economic growth. And you expand your research beyond economic factors, economic drivers, and you realize that there is more to life than income. What is happening in those other areas? And you realize that there is a lot of good relationships. That's what we are calling relational wealth. Not monetary wealth, but relational wealth. And relational wealth is very high and also very good distributed. Even people with low income have access to good relationships.
When you both look beyond the rankings, themselves. What do these results tell us about what people value in Latin America?
It is that the happiness of the people or the life satisfaction or whatever measure we use is very private. People is happy with their family, with their friends, with their work. When you see in the ranking that Latin America is very happy or Mexico is very happy or whatever along those lines, it doesn't mean that the government is necessarily providing that happiness. The strength of our inner relationships or our family and our perception of life is larger than whatever the government is doing it. So I will say it is not thanks to the government, it's despite the government that we are getting all this satisfaction.
If other countries wanted to improve well-being and quality of life, not just economic growth, what could they learn from the Latin American experience?
For the last 100 years, the paradigm of progress was about economic growth. That was not a good strategy. It's a strategy that generates more productivity, more production, but not more happiness. And we need to look for other pillars. Those two pillars that we are missing are relationships and leisure time.
Again and again, the research points to something simple but powerful: connection. The quality of our relationships, the way we share time, space, and everyday life. And among these countries, one stands out. A country that has consistently reported high levels of life satisfaction and happiness, even in the face of real economic and social challenges. A country where optimism and deep social connection remain central to everyday life. That country is Mexico. In recent years, Mexico has appeared higher than expected in global happiness rankings. It's a result that surprises many people, especially if their understanding of the country comes only from headlines. To understand what's behind the numbers, I spoke with 3 well-being researchers who live and work in Mexico. When you first saw Mexico appear in the high rankings in the World Happiness Report, did that surprise you? What was your reaction?
Of course it surprised me. I was a little bit baffled, of course. That was my first reaction, but then I was intrigued about what was happening, what was behind this position. Mexico has been very stable in the life evaluation results.
So from an outside perspective, Mexico does face many challenges: inequality and insecurity. What do you think people miss when they assume that those elements lead to lower well-being?
Of course, those are structural factors that impact and reduce well-being in Mexico. If you look at what happens in certain pockets within the country, you can see how this affects the well-being. But at the same time, I think that what is missing sometimes is that it's very difficult to explain well-being only from one single factor. And that Mexicans, and I think this happens in many other places, many other nationalities, in many other regions, people take advantage of different surrounding factors to overcome the problems and try to be resilient in terms of how to flourish and how to improve their situation.
Daniel, we'll turn to you. You described Mexico as being a very culturally indulgent society. What does that mean, and how does that affect well-being?
Indulgence refers to the tendency of some societies to allow themselves a relatively free gratification of basic and natural human desires related to enjoying life and having fun. Mexico is almost at the top of the list. That speaks volumes for the Mexicans' enjoyment when they go to fiestas, celebrations of any time, even any type, positive emotions like elation, jubilancy, intense joy, in addition to the socialization, to the connection that people have in these social gatherings, support well-being in the country.
From an outside perspective, happiness rankings can look overly simple to many people, or even misleading. What do they miss about how happiness is actually experienced in Mexico?
Well, measurement is not perfect. And we know happiness and well-being is multidimensional, but I think this item is very useful to measure happiness, and because it focuses not at happiness as emotion, but in general satisfaction with life. So in Mexico, maybe we have challenges, a lot of challenges, political, economical, we know, but most of Mexicans, we are okay, or we are satisfied with those things that are important to us, that it is family and relationships.
In your research, how do Mexicans balance personal independence with close family and social relationships? And why does that matter for well-being?
Well, the time use is very important for our well-being. And in Mexico, we are very hard workers. It is difficult to balance time, to balance life with family, friends, but that time that we spend in our workplace allow us to enjoy more the time we spend with our family, with our friends, and we try to build a positive environments in workplace.
And work is not only the place where you obtain an income, but also it's a place where you find sometimes friends.
Mexico has invested a lot in measuring well-being nationally. Why was it important to treat happiness as something worth measuring?
Governments in Mexico, they know that well-being is important for several reasons. For itself, well-being and happiness is important, but also in public policy, it is very useful to help to politicians to decide better if you know what is valuable or important for people.
What do current well-being surveys capture well, and where do they still fall short?
I think we need to measure more regarding the purpose in life of people.
What do Mexicans seem to prioritize when they think about a good life, or la buena vida?
Well, I think that Mexican people tend to prioritize having a stable life and having joy. I think that having a good time in general.
Family, but also the time that you spend working for your family to improve their lives.
For most people, it's just taking life as it is without too much worry or concern for the future.
For many people in Mexico, faith and spirituality is part of everyday life. Does that show up in well-being research? Why or why not?
In that context, spirituality and religion offers individuals, offers people hope. And this idea that through suffering, eventually something better, a better good may come to your life. That may be a factor that may help us to understand why in a country like with so many social problems, people still feel joyful, happy and hopeful for the future,
Most of Mexican lives a difficult situation in everyday life, but if you could see a better future or feel hope regarding the tomorrow will be a better day than today, I think that could be another explanation regarding the position about satisfaction with life. Maybe not with today's life, but with the hope for a better life.
What do you think the world gets wrong about happiness in Mexico?
Happiness in Mexico is much more than margaritas, mariachi, and having a 3-hour breakfast with friends or lunch with your family. I think happiness takes effort.
But Mexico, it's a lot of more than cartels and Cancun. We have a lot of beautiful people with beautiful hearts. And I haven't mentioned about the food. In Mexico, we have great food. Even if you eat alone, you're happy. But you share a lot of meals with your friends, your family, your colleagues. So that is an important issue for our everyday beautiful moments.
So I lived in Mexico for a year. I realized also that there was a culture of optimism that was contagious. What do you think is a great lesson for those outside of Mexico about happiness and well-being?
I would reinforce what I said before. I think that one big lesson is that it takes effort. Happiness is not something easy. And it requires to understand your own needs, but also the needs of those people that you live with. It has a very strong social component.
What these researchers show us is that a good life isn't something you buy. It's something you build through relationships, trust, and the small ways we show up for one another every day. Mexico's placement in well-being rankings isn't a mystery when you look closely. It reflects social habits built into everyday life, habits that protect people from isolation, stress, and uncertainty. In other words, well-being isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about not facing it alone. But when we pay attention to the data, to people's stories, to their lived experiences, we begin to see patterns. And we start to understand that perhaps happiness really can be measured.